You've just entered the law offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker. If you've come for actual legal advice, you need to turn right around, honey. You need to get out of here, 'cause you ain't gonna get none of that. They quibble, and they squabble, and they bicker. But if you want to hear meaningless opinions, this is the right place. They got plenty of that. Stuff that makes no sense at all. They go off on tangents. It's crazy talk. If that's your thing, keep listening. They'll keep talking.
Oh no no, oh no no, it's another episode of the Law Offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker. You've entered the Law Offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker. Yay!
Welcome to another episode of the Law Offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker on the St. Patrick's Day, 2021. That's March 17th. So for all of our Irish people out there, happy national holiday.
Faith and Bigora.
Unfortunately, our third co-host, Brendan, he is Irish, and so this is like a day of leisure for him. And he's incredibly busy. But so happy Valentine's Day, happy St. Patrick's Day, Brendan, and damn you for not being here. All right, so today we have a very special guest. His name is Rocky Kramer. He is a guitarist and multi-instrumentalist who migrated here to the United States, I guess about 10 or 15 years ago, signed with the Allied Artists Music Group, and has got himself a relatively new music video out called Rockstar. And he later on is going to be helping us with our client. This land is my land, and so is your land. So I want to welcome Rocky Kramer. And I guess, Greg, you had like a couple of questions you wanted to ask him kind of right off the bat. So why don't you go ahead and...
Yeah, I read about your childhood, and your parents were like into classical music. Your brother's a jazz musician. When you discovered Kiss and AC/DC and turned you into a metalhead, was there pushback? Were they like, "What are you doing? We don't like this noise"?
Well, first of all, that happened after the sad, my life has like some sadness in it. Is that my mom passed away when I was 5. So that changed everything after that. So up until then, I don't think I was that into any instrument other than the fact that we did have 2 pianos in the house. I think that was really the only experience I had with playing an instrument or music. But after that, it's when I first started with the violin, and the rock came in basically because I had, like, one of my first memories of rock and roll was I had a neighbor that was a Kiss fan, and he had a cassette of Dynasty. If you guys are you guys Kiss fans? Like
No.
That was the album. No,
I was more into Zeppelin than Kiss, personally.
Okay, cool. I just did a Zeppelin
when
cover.
I was growing up, that was the war. The war was between Kiss fans and Led Zeppelin fans, and I was like on the Led Zeppelin camp. So I didn't actually grow to appreciate, I think, till like 10 years later.
Okay, and keep in mind that the guys in Kiss, they love Zeppelin, and they were influenced by Zeppelin. So you'll hear the influence in their music. So for those of you, or for the listeners and the viewers that don't know much about Kiss, Dynasty is the one that had "I Was Made for Loving You" on it. That's the first track. That's when they all of a sudden went from heavy metal to disco, right? And even though it's really just one of the songs had like a slight disco feel to it, because they just said, "Hey, I think we can do that." Like there was just a challenge, and it became one of their biggest songs. But that's not what made me a fan. It was just hearing that music was amazing. And I heard some of the other albums like Destroyer with Detroit Rock City and just like other like the earlier stuff. And then all of a sudden I said, this is really cool stuff. And this is before I really had listened to much rock, other than I guess I had listened to the Beatles and Elvis, like the early rock and roll. And Kiss just made me a rock and roll fan.
And how old were you whenever that happened?
I would say I was about around 7, I think 7 or 8, or maybe even, no, actually I think it was about 6 or 7.
See, and 7 or 8 years old, I wasn't listening to hard rock at all. I was listening to, I think, disco mainly.
Okay, you're listening. I was
7 or 8 years old. That was the height of that era, because I'm old. Anyway, but
this
go
was
ahead.
good. Kiss was good at recruiting little kids into metal because I was about 8
Yes.
years old when. Were you a member of the Kiss Army, a card-carrying member?
Awesome.
Me
That's
too.
yeah,
I still
yeah,
have
yeah.
my
He
certificate.
would have been
somewhere.
part of like the Kiss youth, Greg. He was born in 1990.
Yeah, so I
You're
will correct my statement there. I consider myself a member of the Kiss Army, but I was never able to sign up for anything official. But I did, from an early age, I did, get their albums, their anything that was purchasable. I
And
would
did
I
you
would get
wear,
it.
because you're the Ace Frehley fan, so did you wear like the Star Child makeup and stuff on your spare time?
It's funny. I could never find the right makeup for it. I always wanted to. I wanted to have the full costume. I always wanted that, and it was such a hard thing. Like I wanted to make it. I think I'd try to make it out of like the costuming out of like aluminum foil or something, and it just
That's
it
what he
doesn't
actually
work.
used.
and a leotard, a black leotard.
Whatever would make me look close enough. But
That's what Greg wears around his apartment all the time. Is
It's very comfortable.
leotard and aluminum foil.
So you were basically in the Kiss USO. You weren't in the Kiss Army,
Kiss
but you
USO.
supported
Just
them.
visiting the troops.
I was.
He supported them without their
Yeah,
actual membership.
that's right. I was too young. I was too young to serve.
Yeah.
He was out there saluting.
So I
Yeah.
find it interesting though, because you're kind of a guitar whiz, but Ace Frehley isn't known as like one of the great guitarists in
I actually kind
guitar.
of have to disagree with you there, Greg. Ace Frehley has gotten a lot of credit for his guitar work.
Really? I
Oh,
always
yeah.
heard that he was just workmanlike and he did his job, but nobody
No,
was ever
it
like.
was more than that. There was a reason why he was able to go out and start his own bands and actually not do too badly with them either. With like I think it was Frehley's Comment and
Yeah,
Yeah,
Frehley's
yeah.
comment.
right.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah, I'm gonna just nix that concept.
That's what I've heard from like guys who are really into guitar. Like I played guitar but just chords. I was a punk rocker, so I never noodled and played fancy. But the guys I knew who were into that, it was always like, yeah, he's Frehley. Nothing to sneeze at.
They just grunted at you.
Yeah, they did. They
Like-
said,
like
"Ah."
animals.
And how famous are those guys now?
Oh, they're huge.
They're as famous
What
as
was
Greg.
My friend Johnny told me this.
Yeah.
My friend Ingve Malmsteen told me this one day. when we were
yeah,
drinking
my
beers.
friend
Your
Ingve
buddy.
Malmsteen said, yeah.
Your
My
buddy
good
Steve
pal.
Vai, possibly.
Yeah, we were all hanging out and they were just an Ace Frehley. You know, Ace Frehley's real name, his first name is IP.
No, Greg, that's incorrect.
You know,
I'm sorry.
you
That
can't
joke
say
is older
anything
than
like
you
that
are.
to me because I know all the facts. But I get the joke though. That's a
Well,
famous
joke with
joke.
quotes.
Yeah, that's not even a dad joke. That's like a great granddad joke.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry about that. I'm
That's
trying to
funny.
steal
Curious,
Matt's thunder.
where does the name Rocky Kramer from? Were you watching like Seinfeld and the Rocky movies? Because your birth name is something I can't pronounce.
Right, which is why I wanted to change it.
Right.
I was a big fan of the Rocky movies. They I don't know what it is about them because I'm not into boxing. I'm not into MMA or any UFC and all that stuff. I mean, it doesn't matter to me because it doesn't appeal to me. But for some reason, when it's in a movie and they're putting that music on, you feel like you feel like a champion even just while watching.
You feel like you're gonna
And,
fly now?
Yeah, I'm gonna fly now. I'm gonna. So it was just they're my favorite movie, like Rocky, all the first four movies I would say. They were just very special to me. So, and even the music, like Rocky 4, the music actually was a big influence. And I mean, and the third movie, starts out with "Eye of the Tiger," and that's just like that's a great rock song and really gets
Classic opening riff.
It's amazing. I mean, everybody knows that song. It's just so iconic. And I thought that was great. I wanted to make Rocky into a genre of music, like Rocky and roll, and that's basically what I did. And Kramer was essentially. I went through this process of I wanted to have a name that was my own, and that hadn't already been used by a bunch of other people. And so instead of having, even though I'm certainly born with a name that nobody else has, even though there is another person with that name in the world. There's two of us with that name. But I figured it might be hard for people to pronounce. It's a very Norwegian name.
Now imagine what Malmsteen went through whenever he was becoming well known.
And Malmsteen, or technically his mother, like anglicized his names to make it arguably easier to pronounce.
Wait,
but I think it
Yngve is anglicized? What is his real name?
Yes.
John Smith, and they changed it to that?
Well, first of all, his name is actually Lars originally, but his mother changed his name, which is actually his middle name, is Yngve.
Okay.
And so it's VE, but he changed it to WIE, which I
For the
guess
Germans, apparently. That's more Germanicized. than
it's almost,
anglicized.
I guess. And I don't know I don't see the whole, I don't see if that makes it easier, but I guess Yngve would be harder to understand. But I hear all these weird pronunciations of it, so I guess it didn't help that much. Maybe you should have stuck with Lars.
Yeah, I think, because it hasn't hurt Lars Ulrich at all. So
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
Lars, I mean, I
maybe
guess
he didn't want to be another Lars. Maybe that is what it was. He didn't want to be Lars Malmsteen.
he's like Lars Malmsteen, yeah.
It almost
Like-
sounds like a breakfast cereal, actually.
Did you
Lars
start a
Malmsteen.
band when you were like a little teenager? Did you get into music so hard? Like when you're 12 or 13?
yeah.
Were you what kind of
Definitely.
music? Were you playing Kiss influenced rock, would you say?
I would
Kissco.
say so. I mean, first of all, my first band was really with my brother when I was about 5 or 6 years old. And it was just me playing on ice cream boxes. I wanted to be a drummer originally. I wanted to be Peter Criss, and when I was young.
And
And
what was your brother's role? Was he Gene
and then
Simmons?
he was the guitar player. So he was the
Okay.
guitar player. He would write the music, or most of the music. I wrote maybe a song or two. And that's really what inspired me was watching him both play guitar and write music. I thought that's really cool that you can do, come up with something yourself, because most music that people play is like somebody else's. When I played violin, I'm always playing other people's music. I'm always playing, playing Vivaldi or Bach, or something that has been written long before I was born, long before my parents were born, or maybe in many cases my grandparents, or
Definitely.
it just
Great
goes
grandparents.
way back, right? Because
Yeah.
centuries back in some cases. And I wanted to do something that was my own and create something. So the first band that was really like a rock and roll band that wasn't, my brother and I, was when I was actually when I was 11. That was the very early. It was very rough, and we all wanted to be drummers, and that's when I decided to be, maybe I should be a guitar player instead.
So were you playing the ice cream containers in the new band when you were 11? Because I really actually want
No.
to see a band that has a drummer that strictly plays on ice cream containers.
I think that would be great.
It would be
There are,
novel.
there are bands that basically they all play on trash cans,
Okay.
and
Not quite
which
the
is-
same. We want kind of the mushy cardboard thing.
It's different. It's different when you play on ice cream boxes, because it doesn't have, like, you can't really get that snare sound. So
That's true.
everything is kind of hollow. And I made cymbals
my
out
soul.
of Pringles cans, like the metal bottom.
Okay.
I would cut it off, put a hole in it. It actually sounds like a little cymbal. It works.
Wow.
Got that, kids out there? Free
Yeah.
drums.
Free
Rocky,
drums.
could we rewind for 1 second? You and your brother, did you guys have a name for your band? I'm really curious what you called yourselves.
They're the ice
We
cream band.
did, and it may be our first of all, our names are both starts with an S. My real name, and so we were SS, and my name is
Oh, no.
Langhelle.
What?
So it's SS Langhelle, right? And then we find out,
And then you learned history.
then I learned history. They're like, well,
Oh, Lord.
so there's this guy named Hitler, and it's like, oh, okay, forget about that. So that didn't work out. But SS, I guess, is also like ships. They also use
Yeah.
SS, don't they?
Right,
So
yeah.
I guess we could say we didn't know. It was just our name. It was just our initial. We didn't.
Right.
We do not support any
Well,
of
it's
that
like
stuff.
American ships start with USS, so it's like United States.
That's
ships.
right. That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. USS. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Just
don't know.
don't tell
who
me your
uses-
second band was KKK. Your 11-year-old
yeah,
band.
it just goes on. It gets worse from here. Yeah, that's funny.
Third
But yeah,
band is
so-
like the Killing Fields of Cambodia is the name of it, Greg.
Yes, the killer clowns from
Killer clowns from
Cockalooka Land.
yeah.
I
I'm trying
can't
to
think of a
something with K. I can't.
Kansas.
Kansas. There you go. Yeah, the
Killer Clowns of
Kansas
Kansas.
Killer Clowns.
I'm starting that band tomorrow.
Which we have to spell clowns with a K, but I guess that's okay.
Well, Greg used to
So,
be in a band called.
seriously, though, what was the
Love
name of the
Movies, so he
11-year-old
shouldn't
band?
Make fun of your band.
Oh.
So
Sorry.
the name of the band, it was sort of Norwegian. It was called Svid Rock.
Okay.
and which basically svid means like burnt, so burnt rock. It makes no sense. It didn't have much meaning, but
There's a lot of heavy metal bands where the names make no sense.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But the bands after that, I did the band after that was Psycho Soldiers,
Okay.
Ooh.
and then it was Dark Symphony,
Yeah.
or actually there was a Black Magic, which was, we were basically a Black Sabbath like band.
Okay.
And even like the lead singer would like jump up and down like a frog, and that's when we realized we did this in front of the whole school, and basically we're like, okay, we can't perform like this ever again, because everybody made fun of us. They're like, it's the frog guys, you know. It's like,
you should have
okay,
changed your name to Black Frog,
yeah, yeah. They should have played the Black Frogs.
and then they would have fit.
It would have been fine. Yeah, we should have just named ourselves the Froggers.
And so, how old? Yeah, that'd be good too. How old were you at that day? You said you were in school, like
Yeah, so
16, 17, or?
Oh no, this was all happening very quickly. So Black Magic was 13.
Okay.
Psycho Soldiers was 12. Then it was Black Magic for that little part of the time. Then it became Black Symphony for a little bit. Then Dark Symphony, because I want to get away from the black word, just because of the association with Black Magic. We were like, no, we're a new band, even though it was really just us. I think it was us without the singer. So it was just, we were now a trio. It was just me on the guitar.
Because you got rid of the frog guy.
We got rid of the frog guy. Well, we didn't mean to. It was this weird transition. Now that I think about it, it's all complicated when you really get into it.
You were like, we need a different amphibian as a lead singer. Than
we needed. I basically, which I never wanted to be a lead singer, but I wasn't scared about it. You know, a lot of people have stage fright and they don't want to perform. They get nervous. I didn't get nervous. It just wouldn't sound good. It was just me yelling into a microphone, which, you know, there's an audience for that, right? So,
sure.
But
I've been in that band.
Yeah, exactly. You know, we've all done that. We've all done the yelling into a microphone stuff, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But I definitely did not know anything about vocal techniques or anything, so it wasn't very good for me back then. It was a bad start. I should have learned how to sing first. That's my advice to anyone who's young. Learn how to sing if you want to be a singer.
But you're like 13 or 14,
that.
so this is obviously you're learning along the way.
It's just trial
I mean, most people don't get into bands until their latter teen years, and some people not even until they're like their 20s, for that matter. So you're definitely achieving a lot in an early age. So kudos.
So all the time through high school, were you like still playing like symphonic music at school, playing violin, playing classical music, or you pretty much just gave it up when you discovered metal bands?
So I kind of did a lot of things at the same time. So you were talking about the Kiss influenced bands. That was what I ended up with. It was a band called Armed Science, and we wore makeup like Kiss, but it was simplified, and which in some cases they would think that we were playing black metal, which is a common thing in Norway. Black metal is a big thing, and they wear the war paint, so people will look at us, they're like, oh, you guys play black metal? No, we're just playing glam rock. We're just playing Kiss influenced rock and roll with 2 guitars and a singer and lots of lead guitars, just having fun with it, and singing about partying, and it's like, that's what we do. It was nothing serious about it. But while I was doing that, first of all, I played violin until I was 15. So Armed Science was basically from 14 to 17. So it sort of overlapped a little bit there.
So did you play violin in the band like somebody from ELO?
No.
Kind of take that influence?
I never did.
Okay.
Yeah, I never did. First of all, with the violin, you definitely need it to be amplified if you're going to play with electric guitars. So I just never got into that. I always treated those 2 instruments completely separately in both genre and who I'm performing with. And
you totally missed an opportunity. It's not too late though. You can still bring the electric violin into your work.
It's true. It is probably a good idea to at least give it a shot. I've never actually played electric violin, so I would like to try it, because I have all these things that I use for the guitar, all these amp simulators and whatnot, that can probably make it sound pretty cool, have all these effects. It might actually be a nice addition to the music. But
did you have a
could
lot
try
of
an electric-
resistance? Did you have a lot of resistance to wanting to use the violin in rock music? It was like, this is just a different world, and I'm like not gonna do that because it'll make my dad happy, and I don't want my dad to be happy, type of thing.
I don't know. It to me it was just that I was not really interested in the violin as much as I was in the guitar, because I was natural. Playing the violin was very natural to me. I picked it up very easily, and I played it for years, basically just because my dad wanted to, and I wanted to enjoy it, but it was hard to find that thing that would work for me, which probably would have been making it into sort of a rock thing, playing in a band with it probably would have worked. I actually remember we had some friends of ours, like another band, they did have a violinist. So it was there. Like I should have said, maybe we should try that too. But our music
I'd heard an interview where you
know.
described yourself as progressive metal, and tossing a violin into the mix would totally put you into that category.
Or an electric Pringles can would be interesting. Add to the mix.
That's a great
actually
idea.
Not a bad idea, Greg.
I love it. I'm gonna next album. I gotta make sure I have a credit for guitar, vocals, electric Pringles can.
Remember how Peter Criss would always say on the back of every Kiss album, like he uses Zildjian cymbals because he only uses the best or something like that. So that would be nice. Like I only use Pringles cans because I only use the best.
Oh yeah, the best Pringles.
So Greg trying to get a credit on your album, and he wants to play them.
Yes, I'll volunteer. But I thought it was fascinating. I read your page on Wikipedia that you got to become an American citizen because your extraordinary ability in metal, basically. Yes. And when you think how many like surgeons want to come to America, and you are so good at guitar, they were like, we need this guy as a citizen in our country.
This guy's important.
Yes,
this Rocky guy.
He's that good at guitar.
Well, I'm curious about the transition from Norway to here, actually. So at what point did you go, I'm ready to go to the States? Or what? I mean, were you like really big in Norway prior to moving here? Did you have like a major?
It was something. Honestly, it was something I wanted to do for a long time. The first time I was ever here was when I was 9 years old, and I was in New York because I had relatives that they lived in New Jersey at the time. They moved around a lot. They lived like all over the world, but at one point they lived in New Jersey. So we wanted to visit them, not just to visit them, but we also wanted to go to New York. It was like, ooh, that sounds cool. We'd never been there, and it was exciting. So that was my first time there. And I think I wrote this in an interview, or when I posted when I became a citizen like a week ago, or what day is it?
I think I saw it was on March 4th, which is the day before my birthday. So congratulations on becoming a citizen.
Well, happy birthday. Happy belated birthday.
Happy citizenship.
Thank you. So yes, I guess it's almost 2 weeks ago now. And basically, even then, when I was 9 years old, I was just thinking like, I think I'm going to be back here someday. Like this is my destiny. And when I was 15, I had this moment where I said, you know what, if I want to make it, and I'm 15, you haven't really tried anything when you're 15. Yeah. But I was just thinking like, it's not working out. I got to go to the US. I got to go there, be a rock star. That's what I want to do. And that's essentially what inspired me to go. I just had to figure out how, and there's a lot of, there's a lot of legal stuff that I'm not going to get into because I'm Norwegian and I can't just go wherever I want. So that took a little while. So I didn't actually go here until I was 21. So it took a while, but it was worth it. And it is a process. You don't basically become a citizen just overnight. You have to have a green card for 5 years, and I did. And it is hard to get it, but it is if you want to be a surgeon, if you're in another country, then you'll get it. You're one of the few people that will actually get it. So that is like one of the.
I think the second stage to immigration is you have to have scorching fretwork. That's a very important, apparently.
Yeah,
I had a picture of you going into the little cubicle office and like we see your papers and you just setting up a practice amp and going like doodly 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 doodly. And the guy was like, "You're in."
Okay,
He's like, "You're in."
you're great. Welcome to America.
Rips up the forms. We don't need this shit. We don't need these forms and documents.
Yeah, forget this stuff. I just want your autograph. That's all I want.
I want to be in the Armed Science Army.
Yeah.
So did you have a plan? I mean, you're coming here, you don't know anybody in LA as far as I know, unless those relatives moved from New Jersey to LA. So like where did you make your money to be able to survive? Were you out panhandling your first week, or did you sell yourself to some rich woman in Los Angeles, or what? How did
Yeah,
you,
yeah,
how did you
yeah.
do this?
It's a big famous movie star. No. Scarlett
You can't say
Johansson.
the name.
No, yeah, I can't say the name.
Oh, you poor lad.
It was
Exploited.
it's one of those things where I wanted to go here. I went here. I didn't know anybody, so the only way for me to really be here for a while was by getting a student visa. So I went to a school to learn English because, as you can tell, I have a hard time speaking it. So I
Not really.
You don't
Not
sound
at
like
all.
you have a hard time, but you're let's just say that your English is much better than our Norwegian.
that's true. I
Yeah.
believe
Your English
that.
is better than
Yeah.
mine.
I
My
you know
English.
it's better than your English.
You have better diction than I do.
Well, thank you. I don't know if it's true, but I love it when I hear Americans speak Norwegian because I love that challenge, because when you're Norwegian, you want to learn English because you can speak with practically the entire world. But if you learn Norwegian, you're you're probably either have a job there or you got married to a Norwegian woman or something. Like you have a purpose, right? English is just something that we all need to know because we can use it practically everywhere. I mean, it doesn't matter what country I'm in, I can speak English, and usually that gets me through. I'm able to do stuff. But anyway, I was here. I went to school originally, so that was. I basically said I have a 9-month program. If I can't get anywhere in those 9 months, I'm just going to go back to Norway and probably do something else. I mean, I was going to college. I was studying film. I was considering doing some other university related studies. But my passion was music, so I wanted to at least give it a shot here. It's a tough business, so I was prepared for things to go bad and nothing would happen. But basically, when I moved here, I was living with the school calls it a host family, and they basically provide a home for their students. So I was living with this retired tennis teacher. Her name was Sonia. Unfortunately, she passed away a few years back. But she, I'm talking to her, and she's saying, like, why are you here? And I say, what do you mean? She's like, you don't need to learn English. Your English is better than mine. I said, well, first of all, I never consider myself, graduated with anything. I think you can always get better at everything that you do. I mean, including music and languages and whatever. But
did you look at the camera and say, I want to rock?
I want to rock. So I explained to her, I want to be in the music industry. And she actually called her friends. And one of her friends knew a conductor who knew a guitar player named Mike Pinera, who was in Alice Cooper. He was in Blues Image, Iron Butterfly. And all of a sudden, things started to happen. We went to the Village, we recorded some demos, and he introduced me to Kim Richards, who is the one that basically got everything going. He's the CEO of Allied Artists International. He introduced me to the president of Allied Artists Music Group. They signed me a few months later.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden, I'm a recording artist. I have a record deal. This is
wow.
A big
What
deal.
a process! I mean, you just got signed off of an intro. I mean, did you get the?
Did you even have a demo?
So he definitely got to hear. My music was definitely played to the label.
Well, that's
and
good to know.
The people involved. It wasn't just like, oh, you're Norwegian. Hey, come on over.
We're signing him. We like the cut of his jib.
We like so yeah, they definitely I was definitely signed because of my music, but and a part of it when you talk to Kim about it, who had his history is with Pink Floyd and Queen and a lot of ELO and so on, a lot of 80s music. He liked my album, which is called Firestorm. It is out now. It is available. He liked it because it was a concept album, and he'd worked because he had worked on the wall. And
was that album like, you said it's just out now, but you said he liked your album before he signed you?
Yes, because
so you had it as like demo tapes prior to that.
So I had demos. So everything, basically everything I do, I try to document it. So all of my songs, which has been a long process, I like to record a demo of all of my songs so that at least I have something. Like if I die tomorrow, at least I have demos of the songs. That sounds very, very depressing, but my point is that I'll always have these sketches of the songs for in case, even if I just forget them, because sometimes if you don't listen to a song for a long time, you might forget it. So I just want to make sure that I had a proper version of it. But back then, the demo was really, the purpose of it was to either get discovered by fans or have something that a label could listen to. And I never really thought that a label would get the opportunity to listen to it, because I thought that I would have to be out there struggling, playing clubs for 5 years and get and go nowhere after that.
What is the concept of Firestorm? You said it was a concept album. What could you give us in a nutshell? What's the?
I'll give it. I'll try to be brief about it. I wrote it when I was 16, and it was really about being a teenager, becoming an adult. It touches heavily on the wanting to make your dreams come true, like the song Rockstar, which the chorus goes, I'm a rock star, but it's really about dreaming about being a rock star, which is why it was important for us to make a music video where you see that we have an animated little Rocky that goes to school, falls asleep on his desk, and he dreams about himself as an adult, and that adult is me, and I'm singing, I'm a rock star. But it's really about the rock and roll dream, I guess the American dream too, because of where I'm from and wanting to go to America and make it. And but it's also really about mental health. That's not, don't want to try to hide that. It was, when you're a teenager, you're going through a lot of things and a lot of different emotions. So it's touching on a lot of those different aspects of it. And it's an hour long, and it kind of takes you through this little journey, an hour-long journey.
It sounds like, were you influenced by Pink Floyd The Wall a lot? Because as a teenager, that album really spoke to me, as like the problems of being young. And
yeah. So I wanted to basically make The Wall on steroids, and that was cool because Kim actually he was an engineer on The Wall, so he was there for for those recording sessions. So that's it's nice having that sort of that connection to it, somebody that actually worked on it and bringing in that influence with my own music, because it really did inspire me. I mean, Pink Floyd is definitely one of the bands that truly inspired me, because they're unlike any other band. Like they're just
Rocky. I wanted to share something with you. Is the weirdest thing I've ever read on Wikipedia is on your page, where for some reason whoever wrote your wiki page thought it valid to mention that the Firestorm release party was catered by In-N-Out Burger. With a notation. And I thought, why is he saying, who cares?
Are you?
Hilarious.
Have you been to In-N-Out?
I have. They're good. I know they're good. But
you don't think it's Wikipedia worthy?
No. Who cares?
It wasn't me. It wasn't me. So
I know.
In other words, like regardless of who the caterer was, it's odd for it to be mentioned in Wikipedia.
I figured you might not even know it's there. That's why I brought it up. You'd be like, well, that's curious.
It's I don't know. I guess what I've been told, and I don't know because I didn't grow up here, is that In-N-Out is associated with rock and roll. It's like the rock and roll burger. And I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I remember Adele saying after, I think it was after the Grammys, she had like a bad performance, not because of her, but because of technical issues, right? And she was like so feeling down about it, and she went to In-N-Out afterwards, and it was like that was like a big thing for her. So it's comfort food. It's
well, rock and roll is a euphemism for sex, and so is In-N-Out. So maybe that's why.
There you
good
go.
tie-in, Greg.
Perfect. I love it.
On a completely side note, I'm just curious about your ancestry. So is your family like native Norwegian, or did they migrate there from, I don't know, Morocco?
From the US. Yeah. No.
That's right, because in the United States we're all indigenous.
That's yeah, I know. That's what makes it interesting, right?
Yes.
That's the thing, is that my heritage, as far as I know, and I know that my father, he did look at some of the history of the family. It's very Norwegian, and it's as far as I know, it goes back for centuries. That like there's no real mixed of anything, and it's a very boring family tree that is really all Norwegian. I'm probably or arguably related to Vikings. I mean, who knows?
Okay, well, that was an excellent segue, Rocky, into us discussing our client, because this is the
Big
Law
brain.
Offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker, and our client for today is "This land is my land, and so is your land," which was the mantra of the Vikings of. I guess the Vikings were really big in the 8th to 10th centuries. Now, my question is, amongst the Viking groups, because there's a number of them, you have the Norwegian Vikings, and there's Danish Vikings, and there's Swedish Vikings, but a lot of people don't know that there's like Russian Vikings and Finnish Vikings as well. So, would you say the Norwegian Vikings are the best of all the Vikings, or were they just kind of they took along the Dane? Because I think it was the Danes that were probably the most, or maybe it was Norwegians, because
they were the kings of the Vikings.
I think the Norwegians they settled Iceland, so they at least got that.
Yeah, I think Norwegians were very good about discovering places and
killing everyone there.
I think that I guess that yeah, in terms of like they went to Iceland, which is how they got to Greenland, and from Greenland they got to Vinland and discovered North America. So that part is incredible. From what I can understand about the actual very aggressive, going to England and killing people, and going to all over Europe and killing people and stealing their gold and whatever silver, and was I think a lot of that was the Danes. But I think that back then there was this sort of, in some ways Scandinavians are friends, but again, Vikings were not always even friends with each other. They could just as much kill each other as they would kill non-Vikings. But at the same time, like I was just reading a lot of Viking history a few months ago, and they were actually in some cases Norwegian Vikings would interact with Russian Vikings. Like they would go there, they would go to like St. Petersburg or whatever that town was called back then, and seek asylum if they were being hunted by other Vikings or something. So it wasn't like
West Side Story, like a gang war. One Viking versus the other one.
They would pirouette and like hit each other.
Sing songs about gang warfare, Viking stuff.
Actually, what does the word Viking mean, just in and of itself? Do you know the translation for that word?
From what I can understand, Viking is its own word, and the way I've seen it being used is they will say we went Viking, which basically means like pillaging, or like it's a term to go places and do bad stuff.
That's interesting. So Viking is a verb.
So it's basically it is being used as a verb and as
we Vike,
as a
they
noun.
Vike, you Vike, we all Vike. Let's go Viking.
Let's go Viking together.
Get on my bicycle.
What I'm amazed from studying, like reading about European history at that time, is just how unstoppable the Vikings were. Like almost every country was just like, take our gold. We can't even try to fight you. They were unstoppable. It's amazing.
It was amazing, and I love the fact that a lot, some countries would give the Vikings whatever they had and said, please don't come back. But then the Vikings were like, wait a second, they just gave us a bunch of valuable goods. We're going to go back and get some more. Like, we didn't get the memo. It was a translation issue, which is always what I've been wondering about Vikings is how did they communicate? Because the Vikings, they spoke some sort of Norse language. And I guess there was a lot of different languages around that time. I mean, you go to England, and I've been watching Vikings lately, so I'm assuming that some of that is fairly realistic, but I know for sure they did not speak English to each other. So how did that happen? It's like there must have been some Latin going on there.
Yeah, there was Latin was probably I think that tied a lot of it together. It's kind of like what created the end of the Vikings was them getting converted to Christianity for the most part.
Yeah.
So they started losing their.
I was really into getting this client today because my father claims that we were Gaulish Vikings. France, old time France, because my last name is Pedix with an IX. It's a very rare name.
Really?
Just like Asterix. I don't know if you grew up reading Asterix the Gaul. So
yes.
We were like, I don't know if we were Vikings, but we were barbarian types who were Gaulish.
That hasn't changed.
We went down to Sicily because my dad's was Italian. I'm half Italian. So they went down to Sicily to maraud and pillage. And then they just said, hey, it's nice down here.
Which half of you is Italian, Greg? Your left or your right? Your top or your bottom half?
My bottom. Yeah.
The bottom half.
Definitely from the waist down. I'm all Italian, baby. I don't know what that means.
I don't know if that's a
pro
either.
or a con. Yeah.
So
yeah, we were Sicilian.
So with you, is it kind of a badge of honor in Norway to say that you're like descended from Vikings, or is this something you're trying to hide from your history, or is it because it's fascinating to me that now your country has that incredibly violent background way back when, but now it's got one of the highest happiness indexes in the world, if not the highest.
True.
And one of the best standards of living of any country in the world. And
True.
so it's kind of it's like, did that affect the overall philosophy of people in Scandinavia, in your own opinion? Not like you're supposed to be an expert just because you live there. It's kind of like asking us things that are philosophical about the U.S. like we're some kind of expert. I'm just saying based upon your knowledge.
Yeah, I've been trying to figure that out because I like I said, I've been reading about that about the Viking era, and I've been trying to figure out why they all of a sudden, it was basically 1066 is when they were like, okay, we lost against England, we lost, and we for some reason decided not to attack again. And I believe they actually did, like they tried a little bit in the early like 1100s, but all of a sudden they said, okay, we're going to document what we did, which is all based on, a lot of them are based on quads, which are basically poems, like war poems, basically, that document the battles. And a lot of those battles were documented differently by the Vikings than by like the British. The British have they were much better at actually writing down history with actual like paragraphs. And according to the British, they basically said a lot of that stuff that you guys documented is not true. So you can believe in it and you can live by it, but it's not all of it is true. So it's a little bit of a kind of a kick in the hoopsie for Norwegians
the
today.
Hoopsie.
Kicking the hoopsie.
What part of the anatomy is the hoopsie?
Do you want to know?
Oh
The
yeah,
Italian part.
It's the Italian part.
The Italian lower half.
It's the spaghetti and meatballs. And but
he just described your anatomy perfectly, Greg.
Yeah, unfortunately, yes.
Yes, it's a mess down there. But for some reason, you get to the 1100s, they write everything down, and they're like, okay, this is what happened during the Viking era. We were Vikings, now we're not. Then Norway is essentially, it becomes a union with Denmark, and it's basically a part of Denmark for hundreds of years, even though the borders are changing, and then there's They're part of Sweden for a while. It's a part of Denmark. It kind of goes back and forth a lot. And there's this weird, like strange sort of like there's lack of events going on. There's not much going on, really.
I like how you said it's a weird, strange lack of events because lack of events.
Because you would think
be
if you look at other European countries during the same era, there's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of
it was
stuff
just like a long, cold winter for all
the
those
Middle
years?
Ages, and I guess when you're saying a long cold, I think there was like a sort of a cold. What do you call it? I don't know what's
like a mini ice age.
Like an ice age. That's the word I was thinking about. Thank you. I think there was a mini ice age in the like 12th or 13th century, and there was the Black Death, the plague, a lot of stuff going on. What year was that? Or what era was that? That killed a lot of people, so it kind of reset things a lot.
Did you have a big rat problem in Scandinavia? Do you have like?
Well, it was all over the world. The what is it called in English? The Black Plague.
Yeah, the bubonic plague. But it was
Black
transferred via rats.
It was they're now actually starting to say maybe it wasn't. They're looking at some historians are saying, well, that may not be true, but I don't know. I certainly wasn't there. I'm not a vampire, even though some people say I am.
Too, wasn't it?
Maybe it was black magic was to blame.
It was black magic. I think it was black magic. It was my
Your
band.
Your
we
band
were just
went
out
back
there
in time.
killing people with our music, with our frog jumping.
People were laughing.
The
plague is here. They're all jumping like frogs.
The plague of toads.
So, but I think the plague essentially it wiped out most of the Norwegian population. It dropped tremendously, and the same thing with. I mean, it happened all over, at least all over Europe. I'm not sure how it affected Asia or Africa. I don't really know, but
it started in Asia and was taken there to the Crimea by Mongol warriors and traders. But yeah, it's not quite rodents. It was the fleas that were on rodents. So if the fleas
heard that.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Then
that's
it could have gone from people to people because they weren't known for their tidiness back then. And this is back in 1347 to 1352. So about
if they could have
300 years after the Vikings.
I was very close to saying 1347. I that's amazing. Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Because you're psychotic. You read minds.
Yes, I'm definitely psychotic. No.
If they could have only made tiny little flea collars for every rat in Europe. The whole thing could have been averted.
For the fleas themselves, so they could have the fleas as pets.
And flea circuses.
You'd have to have like really tiny collars though for the fleas, though, Greg.
That doesn't make sense. A flea collar for a flea? That would
Why
keep
not? You have
itself
dog
away?
collars for dogs. You don't put the dog collar on a person.
Ooh,
I guess some dogs do.
Good point.
It depends on what you like.
Depends on whether you have an Italian lower half or not. So
that's right.
So there is this period of nothing happening. I guess the Dark Ages for Scandinavia. What would you say would be the highlights of the Scandinavian I guess history then in terms of coming to the more modern times?
More modern times.
When they finally got rid of the horned helmets and like use those for seats.
So and because you said that, I wouldn't bring it up otherwise. Vikings did not have horns on their helmets. That's not that is like I don't know who decided that. That is like a modern myth or whatnot. I don't know who started that. But
I think the Minnesotans started that.
It could be it could be a Minnesotan thing, but there's no evidence. They found a bunch of Viking helmets and none of them had the horns on them. So they were just, but they did look like that. They did have this sort of helmet and sometimes something that goes down on their nose. And there were a lot of them were made out of metal or some sort of metal, I guess iron or something, but I don't think they had stainless steel yet. That's the modern helmet.
That's sad that it wouldn't be, but apparently it's more like Germany where the horn helmets came from.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I think the northern part of Germany was part of the Viking movement as well, like in Schleswig-Holstein, that area.
I guess to some degree, but I know that the Danes fought the Germans a lot, and then the borders were very different back then. Yeah. Germany was a very different place. and there's a lot of, the borders were changing a lot. So, but yeah, the Germans definitely had a lot of contact with the Danes. But I think it was both friendly and unfriendly.
Makes you wonder
So-
what kind of horns they were using on those helmets too. So in other words,
It's a good question. Like, did they just glue them on there? Like, did they have like a glue stick? Just
or like, did they actually grow them out of their own heads and they had to make holes in the helmet so that it stuck on top, so it fit?
You know,
better?
I think what you're saying is that Germans used to have horns. They just
I
through
might be
evolution,
implying that they're aliens.
just-
I think that's that Germans way back when were aliens. Like they
They
came
were
here
quite
from,
devilish.
they came
Yeah.
from Mars or something. Well, it's a different kind of horn, Greg. It's not like goat horns. You know, these are more like
they're big,
the
They're
horns
like
I've
from
seen
a-
those
like
horns.
from
like a bull.
bulls.
like
Yeah.
a bullhorn. Yeah.
Yeah, like on every
But not
Viking
one that you
movie.
would hold and amplify your voice with. Because
No.
that would be a different kind of helmet entirely. If you had
Yes.
like two bull horns sticking out of your helmet, then you could actually probably scare the other army if you had a couple of bull horns stuck to your helmet. Because back then there was no electricity. They'd be like, "This is magic. How is this happening? How are they able to speak like this to us?"
Rocky, have you ever written a song about Vikings? Was that ever
Or
the
about
topic
bull
of
horns. Either
your
one.
lyrics?
Or bullhorns. It's funny you asked that, because I feel like I spent most of my life treating Vikings as almost like it's a part of the past, and now more recently, I just sort of wanted to spend more time with Vikings. So now I really want to write something, and to circle back on Led Zeppelin. I mean, they made a lot of songs about Vikings,
That's true.
and so I was thinking I got to have like a proper Viking song. You know, Yngwie has "I Am a Viking," so I need to have something like that, something
This
like
is the way to
Yngwie.
bring the violin into it, because you know Jimmy Page used the violin bow on guitar, right? So you could possibly.
Yeah, he did. I don't know why, because a guitar is flat. The strings are flat. On the violin, they're actually they have a certain angle to them, so you can actually play each string individually. It doesn't really, if you put a bow on a guitar, it doesn't actually sound that great.
It's a power chord. A power
Yeah,
Basically,
chord.
you're playing
No.
all six strings at once, or if you push it sort of towards your chest, you can probably play the E string on it by itself or something. But
And then
I
you'll have
vote
Bruce
for a full-
Springsteen's band.
I vote for a full concept album about Vikings, Rocky.
I'm
That's my
actually gonna
suggestion.
second that as well.
I think it's a
Yeah.
great idea. I've been thinking about it. I do want to do something Viking. I gotta have like the album cover has to be me with a Viking helmet with no horns, but the full outfit.
Or you have the horns attached to your head, but the helmet doesn't have horns on it.
I could do that. I
Just
could
has
just
the
do like
open
an
holes.
animated cover where
Like
it's
the
just me.
like the Germans with the horns, you know.
But I
Yeah.
think if you do that, no one will know you're supposed to be a Viking because everyone thinks Vikings have horns. Everyone will be like, "Hey, it's a
Yeah.
barbarian."
Where are the
Or-
horns? Is
or-
that a Viking?
Or he does a
He's not a
concept
Viking.
album about the Minnesota Vikings and it's just all about football.
Minnesota. That would be hilarious.
You're gonna
Make a whole
take the Super
concept
Bowl.
album about a sports team. I love it.
It all starts with a tiny little ball in a tiny little town in Norway. Well, actually, I don't know how big the town is. You're from Trondheim,
Yes.
and which, you know, being an American, I have no clue where the hell that is. So I know it's somewhere in Norway, which again is somewhere up north of Europe, next to Sweden, and then things. I actually heard you describe Norway as a guitar in some interview. As
Yes,
you
I
were
did.
Giving the. Where did you come up with that analogy? Is it something you grew up with, or is it something that you invented that it looks like a guitar?
It wasn't it's not an original idea, but if you
Oh.
look at the country, if you have a map of Norway that only shows Norway, it's kind of thick at the bottom, and then there's a long neck looking thing, and then there's kind of something up top that looks like a headstock, almost like a Fender
I
headstock,
was gonna say I think I dated somebody like that once.
and with a very long neck
That's
and
right,
a
and
fat
wide
bottom.
Exactly.
You know, she had a really fat bottom and
But
a
her neck was
long ass
huge.
neck.
That sounds like a 50s song.
I have this giraffe fetish.
Yeah, I love my girls the way I love my zoo animals. Yeah,
Spotted.
yeah, I love spotted with a long neck. But yeah. So Trondheim is it's the third largest city. but that means that there's essentially about 200,000 people. So that's a very small town here in the States.
So that's
But
even smaller than most of the suburbs around LA.
yeah, I was thinking that there are a lot of suburbs here that I see population, 80,000. I'm thinking that's just a small insignificant place here in LA, but in Norway it would be like, oh wow, you live there, that's a big place. So it's all about perspective, but it feels like a big city because it's more spread out. It's kind of like LA is also very spread out, except LA is huge with millions of people. But so you can go to places. It's not like everything is within walking distance, which would feel very small to me. But it's nice. It's a great city. It's a very rockin' town. A lot of rock bands that started out there.
A lot of actual rocks probably as well.
A lot of rocks too. Yeah, we have a lot of rocks.
What does
Are there any churches?
What does Trondheim mean?
So Trond means is a name actually. So Trond. And I believe it's actually named after one of the Vikings that essentially established the city in 1900. No, sorry, that's wrong. 900. I make this mistake all the time. 997 is when it was established. That's 1,000 years ago. It celebrated 1,000 years. It had a 1,000 years anniversary. Can't talk.
And it's
back in
1997.
Are there buildings there? Are there buildings there from like 1100 that are still standing and stone structures?
It has changed a lot. There is a big cathedral that apparently, the way you see it today, if you look it up, it's called Nidaros Cathedral. It looks huge today, but it actually wasn't like that back when it was first built. And it was built back in, I do believe it was like the 12th or 13th century when they started. But when you look at the historical images from, or not, they're not real photos, they're like drawings or illustrations from back then, they were actually, it was just a kind of a regular size church looking thing. It just kept growing. Now it's a big thing, almost like the Notre Dame in Paris. Just not that big. I think that one's bigger. I haven't been to Paris though. I don't know.
I'm surprised that the black metal people didn't burn that church down by now. All the black metal bands.
They have burned down a few churches, and that's always a scary thing. I think they tried to burn down the church that was close to my house one time. It was
Are they still doing that shit?
Like they're still, I think somebody did something maybe a year ago or so.
Aren't they bringing back like the Norse or the Viking mythologies for religious purposes? I've heard like that's been something that's been revitalized in like, the last 30 years.
Yeah, definitely the black metal people, the people that are like either in the bands or they're into that music, they like the Viking culture a lot. So and that's
about the blood
that's
sacrifices and Odin and what have you.
Yeah, my real question is where is the origin of these of this religion? Because if you're Christian, you have the Bible, and you got the Torah, and you got the Quran, and all those things. You got these books you can reach for. I don't know what book you would get other than some book that was written by a modern writer that talks about Norse mythology. It's just something that is, they taught. I guess they taught it to their kids.
Right. They just handed
back
it down
then,
to they
and they became stories and whatnot. But it's all like where did Thor and all those, like, who wrote this? Who came up with it?
That's what's going to happen when the power grid finally goes down. We're not going to really have any books left. Everything's going to be done like on the internet. That'll disappear, and then it's going to go back to handing down information to storytellers again, and we'll all be stuck believing in Odin or some other deity that for some reason brings lightning down.
And I will tell my grandchildren about the time I met Rocky Kramer, and he spent a wonderful hour talking to us.
Hey, before you go though, Rocky, I know you gotta run because you have like some massive gig you have to perform in. But could you say the name of our show in Norwegian?
The whole show. So I would say,
as much as I don't know how much translates to Norwegian, but
first of all, uh, and I have to ask you guys, what is it? Quibble, squabble, and bicker. What is this? Is this a term?
Quibbling is like nitpicking, right? That's
Oh,
whenever you're going
okay.
like very detail oriented about things, but then you're annoying about it. Squabbling is essentially arguing with each other, and bickering is another form of arguing, except kind of a little more petty. So that's,
Okay.
and then
Which we
law,
do here.
law of course refers to the first part of the word log, but without the G. Oh, actually, no, it's got to do with legal terms. But anyway, then offices, of course, is where people hang out and they conduct business and what have you. Then the word
I think
I'm
he
not
knows
going
what
to define.
of means. You
Of
don't have to
has got
explain of.
of has
Yeah. I
about
do want to know what of means.
it has about
Please continue.
23 definitions, so I don't know if I can get into all those. So if that helps a little bit, but I was hoping that maybe, because I'm curious what it would sound like in a foreign language, if you don't mind.
Oh.
But if you have a problem with it, it's okay too. You can just
I'll
fuck off.
I'll give it a shot. I mean,
Okay.
law office is so an office would be kontor.
Okay.
I think I'm gonna have to dissect this word by word. And law would be lov. It's pretty similar. That would be the word. If you want to know the word for lawyer, it would be advokat, like advocate, right?
Okay,
Like
that makes
advokat.
sense.
Of would be, if it's for a name, it would be I'm not, let's see. Maybe it would be like for. So it
Okay,
would be like
yeah.
foot.
Okay.
FOR, which is actually spelled the same way. I definitely don't have a direct translation for quibble, squabble, and bicker, but if you're arguing something, you can say krangre,
Okay.
which is almost like it sounded like another word for me. It
Krangre,
sounds like another
yeah.
Norwegian word. Never mind. I was gonna say
Well-
it sounds like kringle, which it's kind of like a Norwegian form of a donut.
You could actually use any word you wanted and tell us that's what it meant, and we wouldn't really know any difference.
You know, I could have just gone, well, all you got to say is point, da. And then you've been like, oh, that's Norwegian to me. Sounds like it.
The point.
I wouldn't be that American. I would disagree as soon as I heard those pronunciations. But
Yes.
but do you have a word for like nitpicking in Norwegian?
I'm
being a little too picky about things.
Being picky. Like if you're picky
Like
about something,
annoyingly picky is kind of what it comes down to.
I want to see how, if I want to try to translate it.
Google Translate.
Let's
Like
see,
someone
Google
who
Translate.
corrects everyone's mispronunciation and won't let it go. Something like that. Some hypothetical person.
Some person who doesn't belong to this podcast.
Can't find it. Okay, so my translation didn't work out. I would say, gosh.
Well, maybe you could just say
I'm
them
not
all
sure.
in a Norwegian accent.
Just say Law Offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker. That sounds more Swedish to me, actually.
You did sound like the Swedish chef from Muppets right there.
That's great. Like Norwegian, like the difference between Norwegian and Swedish accents is usually Swedish is more like this, and Norwegian is usually more like this. It's like hello, I'm from Norway, like more like that. Quibble, squabble, and bicker.
Like Minnesota people.
Apparently, some people do speak like that. I've heard people that are born in the United States, they only speak English and they sound a little bit like me.
Well, it's because there's a lot of Scandinavians actually emigrated to the northern states in the Midwest.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
Back in the 1800s.
I believe I have some relatives that did do that.
You probably have more than you think.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. I know that I have confirmed with relatives that I've never done any like I've never tried to trace them down or try to find them or anything, but I do know that some people went. If they made it, if they survived or anything, I don't know, but
yeah,
it would be interesting to find out.
They didn't eat each other over a mountain pass. That's true. Anyway,
I think they're throwing rocks at each other.
Anyway, well, I'm going to say thank you very much for putting up with us, Rocky. It was great talking with you. I really appreciate
Yeah,
your
thanks.
perspective.
Thanks for
I
having
hope,
me.
Don't forget, everybody, his website is www.rockykramer.com. He also hosts a show on YouTube every Tuesday, Rock and Roll Tuesdays with Rocky Kramer. It's put on from Allied Artist Music Group as well.
And check out his album, Firestorm.
Firestorm.
Out now.
Yes, and his upcoming Viking concept album that will be all about American football. So find out that one in a couple of years as well. So thank you again, Rocky. Greatly
Thank you, guys.
appreciate you coming on, man.
You've left the offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker. It's over. It's over. It's time for you to go home. It's over. It's over. Go away now.